Donald Trump shocked the world in 2019 when he offered to buy Greenland from Denmark. The media laughed. Denmark's Prime Minister called it absurd. Trump cancelled a state visit in retaliation. Everyone treated it as another Trump eccentricity, a real estate mogul's fever dream. Then in January 2025, newly inaugurated President Trump did it again. He refused to rule out military force to acquire Greenland, and this time, nobody's laughing. Because here's what changed. China now operates 20% of Greenland's economy through mining operations. Russia has increased Arctic military patrols by 300% since 2014. And beneath Greenland's ice sheet sits an estimated $1.5 trillion in rare earth minerals, the same materials that power every smartphone, missile guidance system, and electric vehicle battery on Earth, materials that China currently controls 80% of global production for. This isn't about ego. It's about the most consequential geopolitical chess move of the 21st century, and America is running out of time. In this video, we'll explore why Greenland has become the ultimate prize in great power competition, examining the mineral wealth that's reshaping Arctic strategy, the military choke points that could decide future conflicts, and the climate reality that's turning a frozen wasteland into the world's most valuable real estate. And we'll conclude by looking at whether America can actually pull this off without fracturing NATO and triggering a new Cold War. Let's start with what's actually under the ice. Greenland contains 25 of the 34 mineral elements that the US Department of Defense classifies as critical to national security. According to a 2023 US Geological Survey assessment, the island holds approximately 38.5 million tons of rare earth oxide deposits, the largest undeveloped concentration outside China. These aren't luxury commodities. These are the materials required to manufacture precision-guided munitions, F-35 fighter jets, nuclear submarines, and advanced radar systems. The Kvanefjeld deposit alone, located in southern Greenland, contains an estimated 11 million tons of rare earth oxides plus significant uranium reserves. A 2021 analysis by the Danish Geological Survey valued this single site at approximately $435 billion at current market prices. China's Shenghe Resources has spent the past decade positioning itself to exploit this deposit, investing $2.3 billion in exploration and development rights, before Greenland's government suspended the project in 2021 due to environmental concerns. But rare earths are just the beginning. Greenland possesses massive reserves of zinc, lead, gold, iron ore, and rubies. The Citronen Fjord zinc deposit holds an estimated 11.4 million tons of zinc and lead. The Isua iron ore belt contains approximately 1.7 billion tons of iron ore, comparable to some of Australia's largest mines. These aren't speculative numbers. These are proven geological assessments based on extensive core sampling. What this means is that Greenland represents the last major untapped mineral province on Earth at the exact moment when supply chain resilience has become a national security priority. The US currently imports 80% of its rare earths from China. That dependency became a weapon in 2023 when China imposed export controls on gallium and germanium, critical materials for semiconductor manufacturing, in retaliation for US chip export restrictions. According to the Center for Strategic and International Studies, Chinese control of rare earth processing gives Beijing choke point power over American defense manufacturing. A 2024 Pentagon report warned that disruption to rare earth supplies could halt production of Patriot missiles, JASSM cruise missiles, and next-generation fighter aircraft within 18 months. Greenland offers the only realistic pathway to breaking that dependency within a decade. The significance of this cannot be overstated. Whoever controls Greenland's mineral wealth controls a critical node in the global technology supply chain. And right now, China is winning that race. But beyond minerals, Greenland sits at the crossroads of a rapidly militarizing Arctic. Thule Air Base, America's northernmost military installation, occupies Greenland's northwest coast, approximately 750 miles from the North Pole. Established in 1951, Thule operates the 12th Space Warning Squadron, which provides ballistic missile early warning coverage for North America. The base hosts a sophisticated ANFP-S132 upgraded early warning radar capable of tracking objects the size of a basketball at distances exceeding 3,000 miles. What most people don't realize is that Greenland's geographic position makes it indispensable to American missile defense architecture. Any intercontinental ballistic missile launched from Russia toward the continental United States must transit airspace that Thule's radars monitor. According to the US Space Force, Thule provides approximately 25% of America's ballistic missile warning coverage for threats originating from the Arctic and North Atlantic. Russia understands this perfectly. That's why Russian strategic bomber patrols near Greenland have increased from 12 flights in 2014 to 63 flights in 2023, according to North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, data. These aren't casual exercises. These are deliberate probes testing response times and mapping radar coverage. The changing Arctic environment amplifies this strategic value exponentially. Climate change has reduced Arctic sea ice extent by approximately 13% per decade since 1979, according to the National Snow and Ice Data Center. The Northern Sea route, running along Russia's Arctic coast, is now navigable without icebreaker support for an average of 4 months per year, compared to essentially 0 months in the 1980s. What this means is that the Arctic is transitioning from an impassable frozen barrier into a navigable ocean that connects the Atlantic and Pacific. Greenland sits directly adjacent to the critical choke points controlling access to this emerging maritime highway. The Denmark Strait, the 300-mile-wide passage between Greenland and Iceland, represents the primary route for Russian submarines exiting the Arctic into the North Atlantic. US Navy submarines and surveillance aircraft monitor this strait continuously, making it NATO's most critical anti-submarine warfare barrier. A study by the Brookings Institution found that expanded Russian submarine activity in the Arctic increased by 50% between 2015 and 2022. These submarines, including nuclear-powered Yasen-class boats equipped with Kalibr cruise missiles capable of striking targets 1,500 miles inland, represent a direct threat to the U.S. Eastern Seaboard Greenland-based maritime patrol aircraft and surveillance systems provide the only reliable means of tracking these submarines before they reach firing positions. This reveals why Greenland has evolved from a Cold War relic to a frontline position in 21st century strategic competition. The island isn't just valuable, it's irreplaceable. And America's ability to maintain unrestricted access depends entirely on Denmark's continued cooperation. Yet that cooperation is no longer guaranteed. Let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture of what's actually happening here. Greenland is not an independent nation. It's a constituent country within the Kingdom of Denmark, operating under a self-government arrangement established in 2009. Denmark controls foreign affairs and defense policy. Greenland controls domestic governance, natural resource management, and collects its own taxes. This arrangement exists because Greenland's economy cannot sustain independence. Approximately 60% of Greenland's $3 billion annual budget comes from Danish subsidies, according to Greenland's Ministry of Finance. The population is just 56,000 people, smaller than Terre Haute, Indiana. The capital city, Nuuk, has approximately 19,000 residents. There are no roads connecting major settlements. The economy depends almost entirely on fishing, which accounts for 95% of exports, and Danish transfer payments. Greenland has no military, no international diplomatic infrastructure, and minimal healthcare or educational institutions capable of operating without Danish support. Yet Greenlandic identity is intensely distinct from Danish identity, shaped by Inuit cultural heritage and centuries of colonial grievance. The independence movement, led by parties like Inuit Ataqatigiit and Siumut, commands majority support in Greenland's parliament. A 2019 poll by Greenlandic polling firm Varian found that 68% of Greenlanders support eventual independence, though only 23% believe it's economically feasible in the near term. This creates a perfect opening for external powers. China recognized this years ago. Chinese companies have invested approximately $700 million in Greenland mining projects since 2016, according to data compiled by the American Enterprise Institute's China Global Investment Tracker. Chinese construction firms bid on airport expansion projects in Nuuk, Ilulissat, and Qaqortoq, bids that Denmark ultimately pressured Greenland to reject after US objections in 2019. The US responded by committing $12.1 million to reopen the US consulate in Nuuk in 2020, the first permanent American diplomatic presence in Greenland since 1953. The State Department subsequently provided $21.5 million in economic development assistance focused on rare earth mineral surveying and sustainable tourism infrastructure, according to US Embassy in Denmark statements. But here's the fundamental problem. Denmark doesn't want to sell. Greenland doesn't want to be owned by another foreign power. And American strategic requirements don't care about either preference. All of this brings us to a crucial question. Is there any realistic scenario where Greenland comes under American sovereignty without destroying the transatlantic alliance? The strategic imperative is clear. The execution is anything but. Let's examine the realistic pathways forward. Option 1. Enhanced defense partnership. The US could simply expand its existing military presence through renegotiated agreements with Denmark and Greenland. This would involve increased investment in Thule Air Base, expanded funding for Greenlandic infrastructure, and formalized trilateral security arrangements. What would need to happen? Congress would appropriate approximately $500 million annually for Greenland infrastructure development: roads, ports, airports, and telecommunications. The Pentagon would expand Thule's personnel from approximately 600 currently to potentially 2,500, adding maritime patrol squadrons and ground-based missile defense interceptors. The US would negotiate mineral development agreements, guaranteeing American companies priority access to rare earth extraction. Consequences and implications. This maintains NATO cohesion and respects Greenlandic aspirations for self-determination. However, it doesn't solve the fundamental sovereignty problem. Denmark still controls foreign policy. Greenland could still partner with Chinese mining firms. And in a crisis, Denmark, a country of 5.9 million with minimal military capability, could theoretically restrict American access. According to analysis by the Royal Danish Defence College, Denmark views Greenland as central to its great power relevance. Selling or ceding Greenland would reduce Denmark to a minor regional player with zero strategic importance. The political cost would be catastrophic for any Danish government that agreed. Option 2. Greenlandic independence with US compact. The US could actively support Greenlandic independence, then immediately negotiate a compact of free association, similar to arrangements with Palau, the Marshall Islands, and Micronesia. Triggers and conditions. Greenland would need economic viability beyond Danish subsidies. This would require massive upfront investment, likely $50 to $100 billion over a decade, to build independent governmental infrastructure, healthcare systems, and educational institutions. The US would guarantee Greenland's defense, gain exclusive military basing rights, and secure priority access to mineral development. Risks and outcomes. This could work. It respects self-determination while achieving American strategic objectives. However, it would infuriate Denmark, potentially fracturing NATO's northern flank. It would also invite aggressive Chinese counterbidding. Beijing could easily match or exceed American financial offers. And it would take a minimum of 10 to 15 years to implement, during which China continues expanding its Arctic footprint. A 2023 report by the Atlantic Council noted that Greenlandic independence would create a sovereignty vacuum that great powers would rush to fill. The question becomes whether America can move fast enough to ensure it's the power that fills it. Option 3. Direct purchase. The Trump approach. The US could simply attempt to purchase Greenland outright, offering Denmark a sum large enough to overcome political resistance. Requirements. The price would be astronomical. Estimates range from $200 billion to $1.7 trillion, depending on valuation methodology. For context, the Louisiana purchase cost $15 million in 1803, approximately $420 million in current dollars. Alaska cost $7.2 million in 1867, roughly $157 million today. Greenland would dwarf both by orders of magnitude. Likelihood assessment. Essentially zero under current political conditions. No Danish government could survive selling what Danes view as sovereign territory, regardless of price. The political backlash would be immediate and career-ending. Moreover, Greenland itself would have to consent under international law, and Greenlandic leaders have consistently rejected the premise of being bought and sold like property. Expert opinion from the Danish Institute for International Studies suggests this approach fundamentally misunderstands Danish political culture and the legal status of Greenland's self-government. Option 4. Long-game economic integration. The US could pursue gradual economic integration that makes Greenland functionally dependent on American investment rather than Danish subsidies. What this requires: decade-long commitment to infrastructure investment, educational exchanges, rare earth mineral development partnerships, and Arctic research cooperation. The US would essentially replace Denmark as Greenland's economic patron, while respecting formal sovereignty arrangements. The obstacle is patience. This strategy requires sustained bipartisan American political commitment across multiple administrations. It requires accepting that China will gain some foothold during the transition, and it requires Denmark's grudging acceptance of diminished influence. According to geopolitical analysis from the Center for a New American Security, this represents the only approach that achieves American objectives without destroying alliance relationships, but it demands strategic patience that American political culture rarely demonstrates. So why does America want Greenland? After examining $1.5 trillion in rare earth minerals, the irreplaceable geography controlling Arctic choke points and ballistic missile warning coverage, and the climate reality that's transforming a frozen wasteland into accessible strategic territory, we can see that this isn't about real estate expansion or presidential vanity. Greenland isn't a luxury acquisition. It's a strategic necessity for maintaining American military autonomy in an era of great power competition. The alternative is continued dependence on Chinese rare earth processing, vulnerable Arctic defense architecture, and hope that Denmark prioritizes American interests over European political sensitivities. This matters because the window for action is closing. Every year that passes allows China to deepen its economic relationships with Greenland, Russia to expand its Arctic military infrastructure, and climate change to accelerate the race for resources. The nation that controls Greenland controls a critical node in 21st century power projection, and right now, that control remains uncertain. But what do you think? Should the United States pursue Greenlandic independence as a pathway to a compact of free association? Or is the entire premise a neo-colonial fantasy that would destroy NATO cohesion? Make sure to subscribe for more geopolitical analysis, defense assessments, and strategic deep dives that go beyond the headlines. We break down the military and geopolitical developments shaping global power, with the data, expertise, and context you won't find anywhere else.